Picture this. It's Monday morning.
Oh, I already hate it.
Right. You wake up and before your feet have even touched the floor, your mind is just already sprinting at full speed.
Just 0 to 60 immediately.
Exactly. You're lying there staring at the ceiling.
Yeah, you start thinking about that massive work deadline.
Or you're calculating financial stress in your head.
Dreading that difficult conversation you've been avoiding for a solid month.
Yes. And your chest feels tight, your heart starts pounding, your cortisol levels are completely spiking before you've even made it to the coffee machine.
Which is wild because you haven't actually done anything yet.
Right. You're still in bed, but you are completely exhausted.
It is the absolute definition of waking up into a storm. And honestly, it is a deeply, deeply universal experience.
Which is exactly why we really need to talk about this today, because the message you really need to hear right now is that you are not broken.
You're really not.
You're not weak, and you are not uniquely flawed for feeling this way. You are just human.
Yeah, you're operating a very ancient brain in a modern world that honestly seems practically designed to drain your peace.
And steal your focus. But there is a hidden switch.
A really deeply practical way to turn that chaotic mental storm into a calm, resilient oasis.
A place where peace isn't just, a fleeting moment on a weekend.
Right, but actually becomes your default operating system.
Hi, I'm Alex.
And I'm Bailey.
We're your narrators from Summary Sanctum.
And our mission for this deep dive is to completely unpack a truly transformative book called How to Stay Calm and Positive in Life.
And let me be incredibly clear right up front about this. We are not talking about surface-level toxic positivity here.
Absolutely not. We are not going to tell you to just smile through the pain.
Yeah, or pretend that everything is fine when your world feels like it's literally falling apart.
Exactly. We are diving into battle-tested, science-backed strategies today.
We're going to look at how to literally rewire the neural pathways in your brain.
Reshape your daily physical habits.
And really build an unshakable inner peace that can actually withstand the absolute chaos of real life.
And I think the most logical place to start this rewiring process is with a concept the book calls the paradox of control.
Yes, the paradox of control, because it highlights the fundamental glitch in how most of us just normally operate.
Right, because we go through life trying to control absolutely everything.
Literally everything. We try to control the trajectory of our careers,
The behavior of our partners.
the weather on our wedding day, the traffic on our commute.
And probably most exhaustingly, what other people think of us.
Oh man, that is the worst one. And we do it because, from an evolutionary standpoint, control basically equals survival.
Yeah, our ancestors survived by anticipating threats and really managing their immediate environment.
So the brain equates predictability with safety.
Exactly. We operate on this unspoken illusion that if we can just manage every tiny moving detail of our lives, we will finally be safe.
Like we will finally be able to just relax.
But the paradox is that the human brain just cannot process the sheer volume of unpredictable variables in the modern world.
It's too much data.
Way too much. The harder you grip the steering wheel, the harder you try to force the world to behave exactly as you want it to.
The more out of control and terrified you actually feel.
Exactly.
It totally reminds me of playing a video game, like a massive open world video game.
Oh, I love this analogy.
Yeah, so you're sitting there with the controller for player one, and that is the only character you can actually move.
Right, your little avatar.
But instead of just playing your character, you are frantically mashing the buttons, sweating, completely stressing out, trying to control all the non-playable characters.
The NPCs.
Yes, the NPCs running around the screen. You're trying to control the game's weather system, the random enemy spawns.
Like the actual background code.
Exactly. And you just end up totally exhausting yourself. Your thumbs ache, your blood pressure is up, and the game is still going to do exactly what it was programmed to do anyway.
That is such a brilliant way to conceptualize the friction we experience every single day.
Because we are constantly trying to program the NPCs in our lives.
We really are. And this brings us to a foundational exercise from the book, designed to short-circuit that exact frustration.
Okay, lay it on me.
It's called the circle of influence. So I want you to picture a bullseye.
Like a dartboard.
Yeah, exactly. Two circles, one inside the other. The inner circle is your circle of influence.
Okay.
This contains the very short list of things you actually have direct unilateral control over.
So basically my player one controller.
Yes. It includes your thoughts,
Yeah.
your conscious actions, your physical reactions.
My daily habits, my decisions, that kind of thing.
Exactly, just your stuff. And then outside of that is the massive outer circle, the circle of concern.
And that represents everything I absolutely do not control.
Right, the past is in there, the future of the economy, natural disasters.
The corporate restructuring at your job.
And perhaps the most difficult one for us to accept other people's choices, behaviors, and opinions of you.
Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow. And the fatal error most of us make is spending like 90% of our mental bandwidth trapped in that outer circle.
Oh, completely. We lie awake at 2 a.m. stressing over whether our boss liked the tone of an email we sent.
Instead of focusing that energy on just doing excellent, undeniable work the next day.
Right, we pour all our fuel into an engine that isn't even connected to the wheels.
That's a great way to put it. When you focus your energy on the outer circle, you are basically guaranteeing your own misery.
Because you're fighting a battle you physically cannot win.
But the turning point, like that hidden switch we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
it happens when you completely withdraw your energy from the outer circle and invest 100% of it into the inner circle.
Because a really fascinating psychological phenomenon occurs when you do that.
Right, when you focus entirely on what you can control, your actual real-world influence naturally begins to expand outward.
It's so counterintuitive, but it's true. Let's test this logic against a scenario everyone universally despises.
Oh, let me guess. A massive, gridlocked traffic jam.
You know it. So you're running late for a crucial meeting.
The worst.
You hit a wall of red brake lights. The GPS adds 20 minutes to your arrival time.
And the biological cascade of stress is just instantaneous.
It really is. You're gripping the steering wheel so hard, your knuckles are white.
Your heart rate completely spikes. You're honking the horn, muttering under your breath.
Angrily changing lanes just to get, like, one single car length ahead.
Yeah, being super aggressive.
Now ask yourself the most objective question possible here.
Does any of that physiological panic and aggressive maneuvering make the thousands of tons of metal in front of you move even 1 second faster?
Not even 1 second.
No. You are just sitting in the exact same gridlock, marinating in your own cortisol.
Yeah, just bathing in stress hormones.
And ensuring that by the time you actually get to your meeting, you are going to be a completely frazzled, reactive mess.
Now, apply the circle of influence to this.
Okay, so you look at the brake lights and you consciously acknowledge it.
Right, you say, I cannot move these cars. The speed of this highway is in the outer circle.
It is totally beyond my control.
And the moment you genuinely accept that, the psychological resistance drops.
So you look at your inner circle, what is actually in your control?
The environment inside your car.
Yeah. You can call the office to let them know you'll be late, taking that specific anxiety off the table right away.
You can put on an incredibly engaging audiobook.
You can intentionally drop your shoulders away from your ears.
Just let that tension go and practice some deep breathing.
And the external reality, the traffic jam has not changed one bit.
Not at all.
But your internal reality has completely transformed from a literal panic attack into a pocket of reclaimed time.
And the book grounds this with a highly relatable anecdote, actually.
Oh yeah, about the author's unpredictable boss.
Yes. So the author was working under a profoundly unpredictable, reactive boss.
Just a nightmare scenario.
And the company was undergoing massive, chaotic, structural changes at the same time.
So for months, the author played the outer circle game.
Right, they tried to predict the boss's mood swings.
They tried to influence executive decisions that were completely above their pay grade.
And they lost so much sleep running through endless worst-case scenarios.
They were entirely focused on programming the NPCs.
Exactly. And it was just destroying their mental and physical health.
So the breakthrough only came when they made a hard pivot.
They decided to establish a rigid boundary around their inner circle.
Right, they stopped trying to manage the boss's emotions or the company's future.
Which is so freeing. They focus purely on showing up every day, executing their specific tasks with excellence,
Maintaining a professional attitude.
and leaving the office at 5 o'clock.
They just let the game do what the game was gonna do.
And within 3 months, they actually received a major promotion.
Which is awesome, but honestly, the promotion is almost a footnote to the real victory.
Yeah, the real victory was the profound sense of inner peace they cultivated during those 3 months of corporate chaos.
Just by dropping the exhausting illusion that they could control the outer world.
They regained absolute mastery over their inner world.
Which naturally leads us to a massive hurdle.
Oh, the biggest hurdle.
Let's say you buy into this. You drop the illusion of control. You decide to focus on the present moment.
Sounds great on paper.
But the problem is, the human brain actively resists staying in the present.
It really does. The book explores a phenomenon called time travel syndrome.
Time travel syndrome, because if you strictly audit your thoughts for a single hour, you will likely find that your consciousness spends mere minutes actually inhabiting the present moment.
It's shocking. The rest of the time, your brain is just functioning as a time machine.
And it is never traveling to fun places.
Never. We travel to the past to hang out with regret and depression.
Oh, absolutely. We rehash an awkward conversation we had like 3 years ago.
Or we ruminate endlessly on a career mistake, punishing ourselves for things we physically cannot change.
Or we travel to the future, which is just the domain of anxiety.
Yeah, we obsessively plan for disasters that haven't even happened yet.
We write terrifying scripts about what might happen tomorrow, next week, or in 10 years.
And we completely miss the actual life happening directly in front of us because we are stuck in a time machine.
From a neurological standpoint, why do we do this?
Well, it's driven by the brain's default mode network.
The default mode network.
Right. When you aren't actively engaged in a demanding task, the brain defaults to reviewing the past for lessons and scanning the future for threats.
So it's basically a survival mechanism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in the modern world, it's a recipe for chronic stress.
So how do you manually override the default mode network? How do you force the time machine to land in the present?
The book details a really cool grounding exercise known as the 5-4-3-2-1 technique.
Oh, I've heard of this. It is a brilliant way to short-circuit a mental spiral using raw sensory data.
Yes. So when you catch your mind spiraling into tomorrow's anxiety, you forcefully demand that your brain process immediate physical reality instead.
So you start by finding 5 things you can see around you.
And you don't just glance at them, right? You really look.
Yeah, notice the specific shade of blue on a coffee mug, or the way the shadow falls across your desk.
Then you find 4 things you can physically touch.
Notice the texture of the fabric on your chair, or the cool, smooth glass of your phone screen.
Then you actively isolate 3 distinct sounds.
Maybe it's the hum of the air conditioner, a distant siren, or just the sound of your own breathing.
Then 2 things you can smell.
And finally, 1 thing you can taste.
Even if it's just the lingering taste of mint toothpaste.
What's happening mechanically there is fascinating.
Yeah, you are overwhelming your brain's processing capacity with real-time sensory input.
The brain literally cannot simultaneously process the detailed texture of a wooden desk, while also sustaining a complex, hypothetical anxiety loop about next week's performance review.
It just doesn't have the bandwidth. It forcefully pulls your consciousness out of the time travel loop and anchors it in the physical space you currently occupy.
But we do have to address the reality of what happens once you successfully anchor yourself in the present.
Yeah, because sometimes the present moment is a highly uncomfortable place to be.
Very true. When you stop obsessing over the past and the future, you are often suddenly confronted with a massive wave of raw emotion right here, right now.
Yeah, you are suddenly highly aware that you are incredibly sad or furiously angry.
So how do we navigate those sudden, intense emotional strikes without being completely swept away?
Well, the book introduces a framework that completely reframes our relationship with our own feelings.
Because the foundational mistake we make is over-identifying with the emotion.
Exactly. When we experience anger, we don't say, I am experiencing a feeling of anger.
We say, I am angry.
Right. We fuse our entire identity with a temporary emotional state.
But you are not your emotions. You are the observer of the emotions.
And here is the neurological reality that completely shifts the paradigm for me.
Okay, what is it?
The physiological lifespan of an emotion.
The actual biological chemical flush of stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol.
Yes, that flush in your bloodstream actually only lasts about 90 seconds.
Okay, wait. Hold on, I gotta push back here.
Go for it.
If the chemicals actually leave my body in 90 seconds, explain why I'm still furious about a passive-aggressive email my coworker sent me 3 days ago.
Right.
I mean, the math isn't mathing. If it's a 90-second flush, why am I still sweating about it on a Saturday?
Because you are actively manufacturing new chemicals.
What?
Yes.
Yeah.
That initial 90-second wave is an automatic, involuntary biological response triggered by the amygdala.
Okay, the fear center.
Right. You can't stop that first wave.
Yeah.
But after 90 seconds, those chemicals begin to dissipate.
So if I'm still angry 3 days later.
It is because your cognitive brain has stepped in and started telling a story.
Oh, wow.
You sit on the couch and think, how dare they speak to me like that?
They always undermine me in front of the boss.
They're trying to get me fired.
Yeah. And every single time you replay that catastrophic narrative, your brain perceives it as a brand new threat.
Exactly. It re-triggers the amygdala, and your adrenal glands dump a fresh 90-second batch of stress chemicals into your body.
Oh my gosh, you are basically hitting the replay button on your own misery.
You're artificially keeping the storm alive through storytelling.
So the obvious question is, how do we break the loop? How do we stop feeding the storm?
The book lays out a highly specific intervention called the STOP method. STOP.
Okay, break that down.
The first step, S, is literal.
By stop.
When you feel that visceral, hot wave of emotion hit you, you have to interrupt the momentum.
So you say the word stop, either out loud or very firmly in your mind.
Yes, it acts as a cognitive pattern interrupt.
Then take a breath.
But it cannot be a shallow chest breath.
Right, because that actually signals panic to the brain.
Exactly. The book specifically mandates the 4-7-8 breathing technique.
So you inhale deeply through your nose, expanding your belly for 4 seconds.
You hold that breath for 7 seconds.
And then you exhale slowly and forcefully through your mouth for 8 seconds.
And we really need to understand the mechanics of why that specific ratio works.
Yeah, why those numbers?
The magic is entirely in that long 8-second exhale.
Because when you exhale longer than you inhale, it physically compresses your chest cavity.
Right, which stimulates the vagus nerve.
Ah, the vagus nerve. That acts as the biological brake pedal for your entire nervous system.
Yes. It sends a direct mechanical signal to your brain to activate the parasympathetic nervous system.
Your rest and digest mode.
Exactly. It forcefully counteracts the fight or flight panic response.
So you are basically using your respiratory system to manually hack your nervous system.
Well, that's exactly what you're doing. So once your heart rate drops, you move to the O, observe.
You look at the emotion with pure clinical curiosity, completely removing judgment.
You don't get mad at yourself for feeling anxious. You just observe it.
And this ties into a massive concept from neuroscience called name it to tame it.
Yes, I love this part. When you are in the grip of a powerful emotion, functional MRI scans show that the emotional center of your brain, the limbic system, is lit up.
And it's consuming massive amounts of blood flow and oxygen.
But the moment you verbally identify the emotion,
The moment you say to yourself, I am feeling a high level of frustration right now,
something incredible happens. The brain has to utilize language and logic to name the feeling.
which forces blood flow to shift away from the emotional limbic system and up into the prefrontal cortex.
Which is the logical executive control center of the brain.
So simply by naming the feeling, you biologically dial down its intensity.
It's mind-blowing. The book shares a great real-world application of this too.
Oh, the presentation story.
Yes, so the author was giving a high-stakes presentation to senior leadership.
Very stressful environment.
And right in the middle of a slide, they realized they had made a massive, glaring error in their data analysis.
Oh, the absolute worst feeling. The initial involuntary instinct was probably pure panic.
Completely. The inner monologue started screaming, "I'm gonna get fired. Everyone in this room thinks I'm a complete fraud."
That is the exact story that feeds the storm.
But instead of letting the story loop, they applied the STOP method in real time.
They paused.
They took a deep, discreet breath.
They observed and labeled the emotion internally. I am experiencing a massive spike of anxiety.
They didn't judge it, they just named it.
And by naming it, they engaged the prefrontal cortex.
The panic subsided just enough for them to think clearly.
They calmly acknowledged the error to the room, corrected it on the fly, and finished the presentation with confidence.
They proceeded with intention.
Which is the P in the STOP method.
It is a masterful display of emotional regulation.
It really is. But if we want to get to the root of the issue, we have to look closely at where those catastrophic stories come from in the first place.
Yeah, who is the narrator feeding the 90-second storm?
It comes from a very specific, deeply ingrained voice.
The harsh roommate.
Yes, the harsh roommate living inside your head. The inner critic. We all have one.
Oh, absolutely. It's that relentless running commentary that operates in the background of your life.
Constantly whispering things like, you aren't smart enough for this role.
You always mess up your relationships.
Everyone is secretly judging you.
And what the book brilliantly clarifies is that this inner critic is not your authentic voice.
It is not the truth. It is essentially a tape recorder playing old programming.
Yeah, it is a compilation of childhood scoldings, societal expectations, harsh teachers, and past failures.
It's basically an outdated algorithm designed to keep you small and safe by constantly highlighting potential threats to your ego.
But you do not have to just sit there and listen to the tape.
No, you have the power to rewrite the script.
But the strategy here is super counterintuitive.
Right, because you don't rewrite the script by just trying to silence the inner critic.
If you tell yourself, don't think about a pink elephant.
All you can see is a pink elephant.
Exactly. Silencing doesn't work. Instead, you have to put the inner critic on trial.
You have to aggressively cross-examine it.
When the voice makes a sweeping, catastrophic claim like, I completely ruined that meeting, I always mess everything up.
You demand receipts.
Yeah.
You ask for evidence.
Like, is the word always actually factually accurate? Didn't I just lead a highly successful client call on Tuesday?
You force the inner critic to operate in the realm of facts, rather than emotional hyperbole.
And the book illustrates this with the story of David, right?
Yeah, David, a senior graphic designer who is completely paralyzed by imposter syndrome.
So every time a client pushed back on a design or asked for a revision,
David's inner roommate would scream, "They hate your work, you have no talent, you are going to lose this contract, and your business will fail."
So David decided to run an experiment. He started physically tracking this internal voice.
He kept a notebook and literally wrote down verbatim what the critic was saying. And when he saw it on paper, he was genuinely horrified to realize he was enduring a level of psychological bullying all day long that he would never accept from another human being.
So he began the cross-examination process. He started reframing.
When the voice predictably yelled, "They hate my work,"
David consciously intercepted the thought and replaced it with a grounded, factual alternative.
he told himself, "The client is providing standard feedback. My work is continuously evolving, and revisions are a normal part of the professional design process."
And notice, he didn't gaslight himself with toxic positivity.
Right, he didn't say, "I am a flawless artistic genius."
He just created a realistic, empowering narrative that stripped the anxiety of its power.
And over time, this daily practice of reframing completely changed his career trajectory.
It allowed him to take risks he previously would have totally avoided.
And this practice of actively searching for an empowering narrative connects to one of the most provocative concepts in the book.
Revolutionary gratitude.
Yes, or the gratitude twist. And let's be really clear, this is not the generic passive gratitude.
No, this isn't where you scribble down, I am thankful for my dog and a good cup of coffee, in a journal and call it a day.
No, this is an aggressive, high-leverage mental framework.
Revolutionary gratitude is about actively finding the gold in the shadows.
It is the discipline of looking directly at your difficulties, your frustrations, and your failures, and asking a very difficult question.
What is the hidden benefit here? What specific strength did this terrible experience force me to develop?
Okay, I have to step in here because my skeptical alarm bells are ringing a little bit.
I get it, lay it out.
Telling someone who just got laid off or someone going through a brutal, heart-wrenching divorce to just look for the silver lining sounds incredibly tone-deaf.
It really does.
It borders on delusion. It feels like we are creeping right back into that toxic positivity we promised to avoid at the start of the deep dive.
It is a totally valid hesitation. The line between toxic positivity and revolutionary gratitude is thin, but it is absolute.
How so?
Well, toxic positivity demands denial. It looks at a devastating situation and says, don't be sad, everything happens for a reason, just smile.
Yeah, it completely invalidates the very real human pain.
Revolutionary gratitude, on the other hand, demands absolute reality.
It says, this situation is agonizing. I am angry, I'm heartbroken, and this is profoundly unfair.
Exactly. It fully honors the grief, and then it has a crucial pivot.
But I absolutely refuse to let the pain be the only thing I extract from this experience.
Yes, I will extract a lesson, a strength, or a new direction.
So it is a tool for empowerment, ensuring you don't remain a permanent victim of your circumstances.
You are training your brain to develop benefit-finding vision.
It's the difference between being crushed by an experience and consuming an experience for fuel.
And the book shares the story of Sarah to highlight that.
Oh, right. Sarah lost her corporate job of 12 years during a massive company downsizing.
And her initial reaction wasn't gratitude.
Of course not. It was pure terror, anger, and betrayal.
She didn't pretend it was a hidden blessing. She grieved the loss of her stability.
But after the initial shock wore off, she applied the gratitude twist.
She forced herself to look into the shadows of that decade-long career.
And when she was brutally honest with herself, she realized that the job had been slowly draining her vitality for years.
The environment was toxic, the work was unfulfilling, and she had really only stayed because the paycheck felt safe.
So the devastation of being fired provided the violent push she actually needed to finally evaluate what she wanted to do with her life.
It broke the inertia. 6 months later, she launched a boutique consulting business, utilizing her specific skill set.
So looking back, she viewed getting fired not as a tragedy, but as the harsh, necessary catalyst that forced her into a vastly better life.
Or consider the story of Mark, who was navigating a deeply painful, contentious divorce.
Yeah, for the first year, he was utterly consumed by bitterness and a sense of betrayal.
He was trapped in the outer circle, obsessing over his ex-wife's choices.
But when he deliberately applied revolutionary gratitude, the narrative shifted.
He realized that the divorce, as painful as it was actually forcing him to develop severe self-reliance.
For the first time in his adult life, he had to learn how to cook nutritious meals, manage a household budget alone,
And just sit with his own thoughts without distraction.
Furthermore, the loneliness forced him to reach out and rebuild deep, meaningful friendships he had completely neglected during his marriage.
He didn't suddenly rejoice that his marriage failed.
Right, but he recognized the undeniable, profound personal growth the heartbreak had catalyzed.
So we have explored how to reframe our thoughts, cross-examine our inner critic, and force a new perspective on our pain.
That basically covers the mental architecture.
Yes, but we cannot simply think our way to a calm, positive life.
If your physical foundation is crumbling, all the mental reframing in the world won't save you from burnout.
We have to look at the physical friction of our daily routines.
We have to talk about energy management.
The book introduces a vital paradigm shift here. You need to stop managing your time and start managing your energy.
You need to view yourself as a rechargeable battery.
Yes, every single interaction, every task, every physical environment you enter throughout your day either charges that battery or drains it.
There is very little neutral ground.
And to make this tangible, the book recommends conducting a ruthless energy audit.
An energy audit. So for 3 days, you carry a notebook and write down everything you do.
And you assign it a specific value, a plus, a minus, or a zero.
A plus activity gives you energy.
A minus drains your energy.
And a zero is truly neutral. Now, a minus isn't necessarily a bad thing, right?
Not at all. A highly focused 3-hour strategic planning session at work is incredibly productive, but it is a massive minus on your energy battery.
Commuting in traffic is a minus. Scrolling through a polarized social media feed is a heavy minus.
While a plus might be a brisk 20-minute walk.
Reading a chapter of fiction or having a phone call with a friend who genuinely makes you laugh.
The audit inevitably reveals a startling imbalance for most people.
Because most of us are operating days packed with 10 minuses and maybe 1 plus.
We are perpetually running on 2% battery, wondering why we snap at our partners over minor inconveniences.
You obviously cannot eliminate all the drainers. You still have to pay your taxes, attend mandatory meetings, and sit in traffic.
But the audit provides the data you need to intentionally schedule boosters.
If you know Tuesday is packed with brutal, draining meetings, you must proactively schedule a non-negotiable plus activity for Tuesday evening, or you will eventually break down.
Which leads to the mechanical question of how we actually install these plus activities into our lives.
Why is it that so many people read a book like this, get incredibly inspired, and then fail completely at building positive habits?
Because they try to overhaul their entire existence on a random Tuesday.
They wake up and declare, starting today, I am going to meditate for an hour, run 5 miles, eliminate all sugar, and read a book a week.
The friction is just way too high.
The brain looks at that massive list of demands, gets completely overwhelmed, and defaults back to the couch and Netflix.
Naturally. The book champions the exact opposite approach. Micro habits and the 1% rule.
Small, almost laughably tiny improvements that require virtually zero willpower, but compound massively over time.
It introduces the 2-minute rule.
If you want to start exercising, do not commit to a 1-hour grueling workout.
Commit to putting on your gym shoes and doing exactly 2 minutes of light stretching.
The natural pushback here is obvious. People look at that and say, what is the actual physiological point of doing 2 minutes of stretching or a single push-up?
Right. They think, that isn't burning calories, that isn't building muscle, it's a waste of time.
Exactly. If I do 1 push-up, I'm not getting in shape, so why bother?
Because the goal of a micro habit is not immediate physical transformation. The goal is identity shifting and the psychology of momentum.
Okay, identity shifting.
When you declare you were going to work out for an hour and then you failed to do it, you subconsciously reinforce the identity of a failure.
You confirm to yourself, I am the type of person who quits.
But when you successfully do 1 single push-up every day for 30 days, you completely remove the friction of starting.
You bypass the brain's resistance.
And more importantly, you cast a daily vote for a new identity.
You begin to subconsciously view yourself as the type of person who exercises every day.
Yes, willpower is a finite biological resource that depletes throughout the day. Identity is self-sustaining.
Once you identify as a healthy person, doing the workout is no longer a choice you have to agonize over. It is simply who you are.
The author actually experienced the power of this firsthand.
Oh, with the morning routine.
Yeah. They recognized their mornings were chaotic and stressful, so they designed an intricate, highly optimized morning routine.
It involved 20 minutes of guided meditation, 3 pages of journaling, and a heavy kettlebell workout.
And they failed to execute it almost every single day.
Because the friction was too high for a tired brain at 6 a.m.?
So they stripped the entire routine away and replaced it with a single, absurdly simple micro-habit.
Drinking 1 tall glass of water immediately upon waking, that was the entire commitment.
It was so deeply simple that it was virtually impossible to fail.
And that tiny, undeniable daily victory created a spark of momentum.
They woke up, drank the water, and thought, okay, I kept a promise to myself today.
Within a few weeks, because they were already up and feeling a sense of accomplishment, they naturally added 5 minutes of stretching.
And over the course of 6 months, without ever relying on massive amounts of willpower, that single glass of water organically compounded into a robust, life-giving morning routine.
Building on that concept of reducing daily friction, the book introduces a brilliant strategy for managing the transitions between our tasks.
Mindful transitions.
Think about how a typical workday operates. We finish a highly stressful, confrontational phone call.
We hang up, and 2 seconds later, we click a link to join a video conference with our team.
We carry all the residual adrenaline, frustration, and tension from the phone call directly into the meeting.
We are bleeding negative energy across the borders of our day.
We never clear the cache.
Mindful transitions act as an emotional palate cleanser.
The practice is simple. Before you switch from one distinct environment or task to another,
Before you walk through the front door after work or before you open your inbox,
you build a tiny 10-second buffer.
you stop. You take 3 deep, intentional breaths.
And you ask yourself one focusing question: how do I want to show up for this next moment?
It completely stops the snowball effect of daily stress.
It allows you to consciously choose your posture rather than just reacting to whatever hits you next.
And if we want to take this a step further and actively inject positive energy into a stagnant routine, the book highly recommends micro-adventures.
I absolutely love this concept because it cures the feeling that life is just a giant hamster wheel.
You don't need to book a flight to Europe or take a sabbatical to feel alive.
A micro-adventure is about injecting tiny, deliberate doses of novelty into your mundane routine.
Because the brain thrives on novelty. It forces you off autopilot.
It can be as simple as taking a completely different, slightly longer route to the grocery store.
It can be buying a strange vegetable you've never seen before and figuring out how to cook it.
It can be going for a walk in a neighborhood on the other side of town.
These tiny breaks in the pattern wake your brain up and remind you that the world is wider than your daily commute.
So if we review where we are, we have audited our energy, established identity-shifting micro-habits, and instituted mindful transitions to protect our peace.
But eventually, we have to step out into the real world.
And the real world is full of other people who are going to relentlessly demand our time, our energy, and our emotional bandwidth.
What happens when your carefully cultivated peace collides with someone else's chaos?
This is where the fences come in. We have to talk about the absolute necessity of boundaries.
Boundaries are perhaps the most misunderstood concept in modern psychology.
Many people view setting a boundary as an act of hostility.
They think it means building a massive brick wall to keep people out, or delivering an ultimatum.
But the science and psychology of boundaries suggest the exact opposite.
Boundaries are not walls. They are the instruction manual for how to love you.
They are sustainable guidelines.
They don't push people away. They teach people how to interact with you so that you can remain in the relationship without building toxic levels of resentment.
It is the classic airplane oxygen mask analogy, but it really bears repeating because we constantly ignore it.
The flight attendant tells you to secure your own mask before assisting others.
If you don't have boundaries, if you are constantly giving away your oxygen to every demanding coworker, family member, and friend, you will eventually pass out from exhaustion.
And a passed-out version of you is utterly useless to the people who genuinely need you.
Setting a boundary is the prerequisite for being helpful.
The book categorizes boundaries into 4 distinct types to make them actionable.
First, time boundaries. which means aggressively protecting your schedule and learning the power of a complete sentence, no.
Second, emotional boundaries, which means understanding that you are not fundamentally responsible for managing another adult's feelings.
Third, energy boundaries, limiting your physical exposure to people or environments that consistently drain you.
And fourth, values boundaries, refusing to compromise your core ethical principles just to keep the peace or please a crowd.
The emotional boundary is often the hardest to master, especially for people who pride themselves on being empathetic.
The book dissects a dynamic it calls the emotional sponge.
We all know this person, or maybe we are this person.
The emotional sponge believes that being a good friend means absorbing everyone else's trauma and drama.
When a friend is having a crisis, the sponge takes that anxiety directly into their own nervous system.
The revelation here is that absorbing someone else's emotional chaos does not actually help them.
In fact, it often enables their dysfunction because it prevents them from learning how to self-soothe.
You can offer profound compassion, you can listen deeply, and you can provide logistical support completely without taking their pain into your own body.
Empathy is understanding their storm. Enmeshment is standing in the rain with them until you both drown.
There's a vivid story in the book about a woman named Linda.
Oh, Linda, the single mother. She was working full-time and she was completely drowning.
She was a classic emotional sponge.
Her ex-husband would call her at 10 p.m. to complain endlessly about his new relationships.
Her sister demanded free babysitting on weekends without any notice.
Her friends constantly used her as an unpaid crisis counselor.
Linda was terrified to set boundaries because her inner critic told her, if you say no, they will abandon you. You are only valuable if you are useful.
She was literally running out of oxygen.
Finally, on the brink of a nervous breakdown, she instituted rigid boundaries.
She told her ex-husband she would only communicate via text and strictly regarding the children's logistics.
She told her sister she needed a minimum of 48 hours notice for babysitting, and she occasionally said no.
And what happened? Did the sky fall? Did everyone abandon her?
Initially, there was massive pushback. People who are used to exploiting your lack of boundaries will always protest when you install a fence.
But she held firm. And eventually, the dynamic shifted.
It didn't ruin her relationships. It actually saved them.
It forced the relationships to operate on a foundation of mutual respect rather than parasitic dependency.
It saved her sanity and allowed her to actually be present and joyful with her own children.
Setting boundaries is how we protect our present and secure our future energy.
But what do we do about the energy leaks from the past?
What about the people who crossed our boundaries years ago, inflicted deep wounds, and walked away?
To truly achieve a default state of peace, we have to engage in what the book calls the forgiveness revolution.
This is undoubtedly the heaviest lifting in the book.
Because, much like boundaries, our cultural understanding of forgiveness is fundamentally flawed.
We are taught that forgiveness is a favor we grant to the perpetrator.
We feel that by forgiving someone, we are endorsing their terrible behavior.
We think it means saying, what you did is okay, and we can be friends again.
But true forgiveness has absolutely nothing to do with the other person. They don't even need to know you've forgiven them.
Forgiveness is a selfish act in the best possible way.
It is a gift you give entirely to yourself.
The Buddha famously compared holding on to anger to grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned.
Or the more modern analogy, holding on to deep resentment is like drinking rat poison every morning and hoping the rat dies.
You are the only one whose organs are shutting down.
The author validates this with a deeply vulnerable story about a former business partner.
This partner completely betrayed the author's trust, embezzled funds, and nearly destroyed the author's professional reputation.
For over a year, the author carried a white-hot, raging resentment.
They lost countless nights of sleep, fantasizing about revenge, mentally rehearsing explosive arguments in the shower.
And just letting the betrayal consume their identity.
Meanwhile, where was the business partner?
They had moved to a different city, started a new venture, and were sleeping perfectly fine.
The author was drinking the poison while the partner was oblivious.
The turning point came when the author realized that the resentment wasn't punishing the partner at all.
It was only extending the partner's control over the author's present life.
The partner was still stealing from them, stealing their joy, their sleep, and their focus.
The author made the agonizingly difficult choice to forgive.
Not to excuse the embezzlement, not to ever speak to the person again, but to intentionally sever the energetic cord.
To put down the heavy backpack of the past so they could walk freely into the future.
It is the ultimate act of reclaiming your power.
But often, when we look closely at our resentment, the person we are struggling most to forgive is not a former boss or an ex-partner.
It is ourselves.
Self-forgiveness is the silent epidemic holding people back from true peace.
The book highlights this through the story of Robert.
Robert was a highly capable, intelligent man who seemed perpetually stuck in neutral.
He consistently self-sabotaged his career and pushed away healthy relationships.
The root cause was a crushing weight of guilt he had carried for 20 years.
In college, Robert had made the terrible decision to drive drunk.
He lost control of the car and crashed into a tree. Miraculously, no one was injured.
But the sheer terror of what could have happened, the realization that he could have killed someone, lodged deep in his psyche.
He subconsciously concluded that because he was capable of such a monstrous mistake, he did not deserve success, love, or happiness.
He sentenced himself to a lifetime of quiet punishment.
We really have to draw a sharp neurological and psychological distinction between guilt and shame here.
Guilt is a highly useful adaptive emotion. Guilt says, I did a bad thing.
It acts as a moral alarm bell, prompting us to make amends, change our behavior, and never drive drunk again.
Guilt is productive. Shame, however, says, I am a bad person.
Shame is an identity statement. It is a paralyzing, corrosive force that offers absolutely no utility to the world.
Robert's guilt was useful in 2004 when it stopped him from ever drinking and driving again.
But carrying that shame for 2 decades was pure self-torture. It kept him frozen.
The world does not benefit from a paralyzed, self-loathing Robert.
The breakthrough happened when Robert finally engaged in the brutal work of self-forgiveness.
He accepted that he was a flawed human who made a catastrophic error in his youth, but that error did not constitute the entirety of his identity.
And crucially, self-forgiveness did not mean he just forgot about the incident.
It allowed him to transform the trapped energy of that shame into kinetic energy for a purpose.
Once he forgave himself, he felt worthy of engaging with the world again.
He began volunteering his weekends speaking at high schools for drunk driving prevention programs.
He took the darkest moment of his life and forged it into a tool to save others.
His self-forgiveness was the mechanism that allowed him to actually contribute to society.
For the smaller, daily grudges that don't require years of therapy, the book offers a very practical, on-the-go tool called the forgiveness breath.
Oh, this is so useful.
Let's say you are walking into the grocery store and someone deliberately steals the parking spot you were waiting for.
Your amygdala immediately flares.
The urge to carry that anger through the produce aisle and ruin your own afternoon is strong.
Instead, before you even open your car door, you take a deep breath, mentally say, I release this insignificant slight, and you exhale the tension.
You actively refuse to let a stranger in a Honda Civic hijack your nervous system.
You flush the 90-second chemical wave and move on.
So if we look at the structure we've built, setting boundaries stops the ongoing energy leaks, and practicing forgiveness cleans the slate of the past.
Your inner world is stabilized.
But we must be realistic. Life is inherently unpredictable and tragic.
A stabilized inner world does not prevent external storms.
Economic crashes, medical diagnoses, and sudden losses will still occur.
To not just survive these events, but to maintain a core of peace through them, we have to develop deep roots.
We have to cultivate mental resilience and cognitive flexibility.
I love the visual metaphor the book uses here.
Imagine a massive, ancient oak tree and a tall, slender bamboo stalk standing side by side in the path of a Category 5 hurricane.
The oak tree is completely rigid. It has massive strength, but it cannot bend.
When the hurricane force winds hit, the rigid tree ultimately snaps in half and is destroyed.
The bamboo, however, is flexible.
It bends almost completely flat to the ground under the force of the wind, but it does not break. When the storm passes, it springs back up.
Cognitive flexibility is your mental bamboo.
It is the capacity to adapt your thinking and your expectations when the reality of your life completely diverges from the blueprint you had drawn up.
Most suffering comes from a rigid insistence that life must go exactly according to our specific plan.
This transitions perfectly into what the book calls the art of letting go.
And we really need to define this carefully because letting go is often misinterpreted as apathy or giving up or just not caring anymore.
Letting go is none of those things.
Letting go is the active, conscious decision to stop rowing upstream against the relentless current of reality.
It is releasing your rigid attachment to a highly specific, dictated outcome.
The author shares a story of managing a massive, multi-year creative project.
They had a hyper-specific vision of exactly how the final product needed to look and be received by the market.
But as the project developed, logistical hurdles, market shifts, and personnel changes began tearing the original vision apart.
The author fought it violently. They worked 80-hour weeks trying to force the square peg into the round hole.
And the harder they forced it, the worse the project became and the closer the author came to a physical breakdown.
They were the rigid oak tree in the storm.
The project was only salvaged when the author finally broke and let go of the original, highly detailed expectation.
They stopped fighting the reality of the constraints and started working with them.
When they allowed the project to evolve naturally based on the resources they actually had, new alternative solutions presented themselves.
The final result looked absolutely nothing like the original plan, but it was wildly successful.
Letting go wasn't giving up. It was pivoting to reality.
We also have to practice letting go of outdated versions of ourselves.
The psychological defense mechanisms that protected you during a chaotic childhood, like hypervigilance or emotional withdrawal,
Might be the very things destroying your marriage or your career today.
letting go means looking at those old tools, thanking them for keeping you alive when you needed them, and gently putting them down because they no longer serve the person you are becoming.
But what happens when the storm isn't a failed project, but a true, devastating trauma?
When you lose someone you love, or you face a life-altering illness, how does resilience function then?
The book delves into the psychological concept of meaning-making, often referred to as post-traumatic growth.
Human beings are meaning-making machines. We can endure almost any level of suffering if we can attach a purpose or a meaning to it.
Meaning-making is the defiant act of extracting value from terrible, unjust situations.
There is a heartbreaking but profoundly inspiring story in the book about a woman named Sarah, a different Sarah from the corporate consultant earlier.
This Sarah suffered a late-term miscarriage.
The grief was oceanic. It was a completely senseless, random biological tragedy.
There was no silver lining to be found in the loss itself.
For a long time, Sarah was entirely consumed by the darkness.
But eventually her resilience took the form of meaning-making.
She realized that she now possessed a very specific, deeply painful knowledge.
She understood the exact contours of a grief that most of society ignores or feels too awkward to discuss.
She decided to weaponize that empathy.
She trained to become a specialized support person for other families navigating late-term pregnancy loss in the hospital.
She sat in those sterile rooms with terrified, devastated women, and she was able to say, "I've been exactly where you are sitting, and you will survive this."
She didn't find a reason for her tragedy, but she created an immense, beautiful purpose from it.
Her pain became the bridge that allowed her to guide others through the dark.
Which brings us to the ultimate, highest level destination of this entire journey.
Beyond boundaries, beyond habits, beyond emotional regulation, the final frontier of a truly positive, unshakable life is purpose.
What the book terms contribution consciousness.
Now let's inject a dose of reality here. When we throw around words like purpose and legacy, people instantly get overwhelmed.
We talk about finding our purpose like it's a lost set of car keys under the couch. Oh, I look behind the cushions and there it is, my life's grand purpose.
It makes normal people feel inadequate. If you aren't a billionaire philanthropist or a brilliant scientist curing a rare disease or leading a massive social movement,
It is very easy to feel like your life doesn't actually have a profound purpose.
how does a regular person working a regular job, raising regular kids, achieve this?
It is the most important question we can ask, and it is where the self-help industry often completely fails people.
The revelation in the book is that purpose is not something you find. You do not discover it on a mountaintop.
Purpose is something you create, and it is very rarely grandiose, glamorous, or globally recognized.
True purpose is forged in the highly ordinary, repetitive, daily moments of service to others.
Contribution consciousness is simply the ongoing quiet awareness that your existence, your mood, your words, and your tiny actions are constantly rippling outward.
Impacting the nervous systems of strangers and loved ones alike.
The ripple effect. You never know where the wave stops.
The book illustrates this beautifully, not with the story of a CEO, but with the story of Eleanor.
Eleanor worked as a public middle school cafeteria worker for 30 years.
If you look at society's traditional metrics of success, that is not a glamorous or highly compensated career.
Many would view it as completely mundane.
But Eleanor possessed contribution consciousness.
She understood that she wasn't just scooping mashed potatoes, she was an essential node in the daily ecosystem of hundreds of vulnerable teenagers.
Her legacy wasn't built on wealth, patents, or fame.
Her legacy was the fierce, intentional kindness she deployed every single day.
She made it her mission to learn the names of the kids who looked lonely.
She asked about their math tests. She noticed when a usually bright kid looked exhausted or hungry.
She provided a reliable, safe smile in an environment that is often terrifying for a 12-year-old.
She created a microclimate of warmth.
And the proof of her massive purpose was undeniable when she finally retired.
Hundreds of former students, now adults with their own families and careers, returned to the school for her retirement party.
They took the microphone and told stories about how Eleanor's brief daily encouragement was the only positive interaction they had on days when their home lives were falling apart.
She saved lives by being consistently, intentionally kind in a completely ordinary setting.
Her purpose was monumental because she chose to infuse her specific, limited environment with deep care.
And to sustain that kind of outward-flowing, giving energy for 30 years, you must protect your inner world.
You cannot give water from an empty well.
To ensure you have the capacity to be an Eleanor in your own life, the book offers one final, beautiful tool: sanctuary spaces.
The sanctuary space is a mental construct. It is using highly detailed visualization to build a safe, impenetrable, peaceful room in your own mind.
Maybe it's a quiet cabin in the woods with a crackling fire.
Maybe it's a specific spot on a deserted beach with the sound of waves.
When the chaos of the physical world gets too loud, when the demands are too high and the emotional battery is flashing red, you close your eyes for exactly 2 minutes.
You mentally retreat into that sanctuary. You hear the fire, you smell the salt air.
You let your nervous system baseline.
You recharge the battery just enough so that you can open your eyes, step back out into the noisy world, and continue contributing.
It all connects brilliantly. Every single strategy we've discussed is interconnected.
From the physical microhabits to the emotional boundaries, it all builds a reinforced foundation so that you can actually carry the weight of a meaningful life without breaking.
Let's take a deep breath and quickly trace the arc of this incredible journey we've just unpacked.
We started by diagnosing the fundamental glitch, the exhausting illusion of control.
We learned to redraw the map, focusing our limited energy exclusively on the inner circle of our own actions and letting the outer world do what it will.
We learned how to hijack the brain's time machine, using the 5-4-3-2-1 sensory technique to forcefully anchor ourselves in physical reality.
When the default mode network tries to pull us into past regrets or future panic,
we confronted the chemical reality of our emotions. We recognized that the biological storm of anxiety or anger only lasts 90 seconds.
We learned to stop hitting the replay button using the STOP method and the vagus nerve stimulating 4-7-8 breathing technique to flush the chemicals out of our system.
We used the name it to tame it strategy to literally shift blood flow into the logical prefrontal cortex.
We took our harsh inner critic to court, cross-examining its catastrophic claims with factual evidence.
And we embraced the difficult, empowering work of revolutionary gratitude, refusing to let our pain be useless and demanding that it yield a lesson or a strength.
We brought it all into the physical realm by auditing our energy batteries.
We abandoned the doomed strategy of massive overnight life overhauls, opting instead for the identity-shifting power of microhabits, the single glass of water, the single push-up.
We installed mindful transitions as emotional palate cleansers between the varied demands of our day.
We learned that boundaries are not hostile walls, but necessary oxygen masks that allow us to sustain relationships without burning out.
We stopped being emotional sponges for other people's chaos.
And we embraced the forgiveness revolution, dropping the toxic poison of resentment toward others, and finally releasing the paralyzing shame of our own past mistakes.
And lastly, we learned to bend like bamboo in the storms of life.
We practiced letting go of rigid expectations, allowing post-traumatic growth to transform our tragedies into purpose.
And realizing that our ultimate legacy is forged in the quiet, daily, intentional kindness we offer to the world around us.
It is, without exaggeration, a comprehensive operating manual for the human mind.
It truly is. And as we bring this deep dive to a close, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to carry with you into the rest of your week.
We often treat peace of mind as if it's a permanent destination.
We think, if I just read the right book, or get the right job, or marry the right person, I will finally arrive at peace, and I can just stay there forever.
But peace is not a destination. It is a biological and psychological state that is constantly decaying and must be actively maintained.
Exactly. Peace of mind is a muscle. And just like a physical muscle, it atrophies if you don't use it.
You have to actively, intentionally flex it every single day.
So the question is, how are you going to choose to flex it tomorrow morning?
When you wake up and the first unexpected, highly frustrating thing goes wrong, when the coffee spills or the incredibly stressful email arrives before 8 a.m., how will you respond?
Will you default to the old programming and let the 90-second storm turn into a ruined week?
Or will you take a breath, drop the controller for the things you cannot change, and choose a different path?
Remember, in a modern world that is economically addicted to your outrage, your chaos, and your noise, vigorously protecting your inner calm might just be the most powerful, rebellious act you can take.
What a perfect truth to end on. Go flex that muscle. Take a breath and protect your peace.
We will catch you on the next deep dive.